Imagine you've just navigated the grueling journey of cancer surgery and chemotherapy. It's incredibly tough.
Mm-hmm.
Now picture this. What if there was an intervention, something simple, with zero side effects, that could slash your risk of dying from any cause by roughly 40% in the years that followed?
Wow.
It sounds almost too revolutionary to be true, like something out of science fiction. But powerful new research suggests this might be a reality, and the intervention, surprisingly straightforward: exercise.
It really challenges some conventional ideas about what medicine looks like, doesn't it? I mean, it's not a drug, not a new surgery, but something behavioral.
Absolutely. And that's precisely the kind of finding we love to dive into here. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a fascinating piece by Dr. Lutz Kraushar.
Right.
Dr. Kraushar holds a doctorate in public health and a master's in exercise and nutrition. He's the voice behind the newsletter called Double Check Doc, where he really rolls up his sleeves and digs into health claims, cutting through the noise to examine the underlying science.
Yes, Dr. Kraushaar's mission with Double Check Doc is, well, it's to provide that rigorous scrutiny, isn't it? To help people understand the true weight of scientific evidence.
Mm-hmm.
In this particular article, he's not only breaking down a significant new study on exercise and cancer survival, but also tackling a prominent critique of that very study.
Right. So our mission today is threefold. First, to really understand this groundbreaking new research. Second, to evaluate the arguments made against it. And perhaps most importantly, to use this as a case study to learn how to spot what Dr. Kraushar describes as questionable dismissals of evidence.
Mm-hmm.
He even draws a parallel to a historical phenomenon he calls the Semmelweis reflex. And we'll explore how this study and the reaction to it fit into that broader picture of health, science, and overcoming skepticism.
It's a classic example, really, how revolutionary findings, even simple ones, can sometimes face resistance when they challenge established ways of thinking.
Okay, let's start with the study at the heart of this, the challenge trial. What exactly was this trial designed to do?
So the challenge trial was the first large-scale phase 3 randomized controlled trial, the gold standard for evaluating interventions, specifically investigating a structured long-term exercise program.
Okay.
Its goal was to see the effect on disease-free survival and other outcomes in patients with colon cancer who had completed surgery and chemotherapy in the months prior to enrolling.
So first of its kind in this specific, rigorous way. Why is that significant?
Well, randomized controlled trials, they give us the strongest evidence for cause and effect. And beyond that, Challenge had remarkable scale and duration.
Right.
It involved 889 participants, which is substantial for a behavioral intervention trial. The exercise program itself lasted for a full 3 years, which is, much longer than many studies.
3 years, wow.
And the overall trial spanned an incredible 15 years, from 2009 all the way through 2024.
15 years. That tells you something about the commitment behind this research. How was it structured for the participants?
Patients were randomly assigned to one of two groups. One was the health education control group, who received general health information, including standard recommendations about physical activity and diet, and continued with the regular cancer surveillance.
Okay, standard care plus some info. And the other group got the intensive exercise intervention.
Exactly. The structured exercise program group received the same general health information, plus dedicated, individualized support from a certified physical activity consultant for those 3 years.
Ah, okay.
This involved scheduled behavioral sessions starting twice a week and then moving to monthly, delivered either in person or remotely.
And what was the specific exercise target for these participants? What were they actually asked to do?
The main goal was for them to increase their recreational aerobic exercise by at least 10 MET hours per week above their baseline within the first 6 months, and then maintain or even increase that level for the remaining 3 years.
MET hours. It sounds technical, but the source does a good job of breaking it down. Can you give us the practical translation?
Absolutely. MET stands for metabolic equivalent, basically a measure of how much energy an activity requires compared to just resting. 1 MET is the energy you expend sitting quietly.
Right.
So moderate activities like, say, brisk walking might be around 4 METs, while more vigorous activities like jogging are closer to 10 METs.
And I appreciate the source, including some more colorful examples, like watering flowers is about 3 METs.
Yes, exactly. And apparently even some enthusiastic bedroom activity doesn't get you much past 3 METs, according to some studies, funnily enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, jogging, that hits the 10 MET mark.
Good to have that perspective. So 10 MET hours per week, what does that look like in terms of actual time exercising?
Well, Dr. Kraus-Haar translates 10 MET hours as roughly equivalent to jogging for 1 hour per week, or about 1.5 to 2 hours of brisk walking per week.
That really doesn't sound like an insurmountable amount of activity for a week.
No, it's designed to be achievable for many people. Now, looking at the participants themselves, what were they like?
Right there, the source tells us the median age was 61, with participants ranging widely from 19 to 84. About half were women, and a crucial detail: 90% had stage 3 colon cancer.
So more advanced disease.
Yeah, meaning the cancer had spread to nearby lymph nodes. At the start, they were already doing about 11.5 MET hours per week of moderate to vigorous physical activity on average. So the goal was to layer another 10 MET hours on top of that baseline.
Right. And after that 3-year intervention, with a median follow-up of nearly 8 years to track outcomes, what did they find? This is where the potentially life-saving part comes in.
Yeah, this is the key. For the primary outcome, disease-free survival, meaning living without recurrence, a new cancer, or death, it was significantly longer in the exercise group. The hazard ratio was 0.72.
Okay, 0.72. What does that mean in plain terms?
It means the exercise group had a 28% lower risk of experiencing one of those events compared to the control group.
28% lower risk. And for the secondary outcome, overall survival, which is the risk of dying from any cause over the study period.
That's the big number that grabbed headlines. Overall survival was also significantly longer in the exercise group. The hazard ratio was 0.63, translating to a 37% lower risk of dying from any cause. That's where the roughly 40% reduction comes from.
37% relative reduction in mortality risk is substantial. Were there other measurable benefits? Did they actually get fitter?
Yes, definitely. Patients in the exercise group reported significantly better physical functioning. And importantly, they did objectively increase their activity and fitness.
Ah, good.
The exercise group spent 5.2 to 7.4 more MET hours per week being active than the control group. They also showed improvements in estimated peak oxygen uptake, their VO2 max, by about 2.7 milliliters per kilogram per minute, and could walk further in the 6-minute walk test, 13 to 30 meters more than the control group.
So the intervention wasn't just for show. It resulted in real measurable changes in activity and fitness. That's crucial.
It absolutely did. And here's a key detail Dr. Kraus-Haar highlights. There were only minimal differences in body weight or waist circumference between the groups.
And this is fascinating, isn't it? Because it suggests the benefits of exercise aren't solely or maybe even primarily mediated through weight loss.
Right.
The study authors and Dr. Kraus-Haar point out this strengthens the case that exercise itself is directly influencing outcomes through other mechanisms, things like reducing chronic inflammation, improving immune function, enhancing insulin sensitivity, or potentially even having direct effects on cancer cells or the environment around them.
That's a powerful point. Exercise is doing more than just helping people fit into smaller clothes. The study authors concluded that this structured program significantly lengthened disease-free survival and showed strong evidence consistent with longer overall survival.
A very positive finding indeed. Now, naturally, findings this impactful attract attention and sometimes scrutiny. What was the reaction like?
Well, the media reaction, as you might expect, with a 37% reduction in death risk was pretty enthusiastic. Within 24 hours of the results being presented, headlines were celebrating this near 40% reduction in overall mortality.
Understandable. But this is where Dr. Kraus-Haar gives us our first important tool for evaluating health claims: understanding the difference between relative and absolute risk.
Right. The 37% is the relative risk reduction, how much the risk was reduced relative to the control group's risk. But the absolute risk reduction tells you the actual difference in percentages between the two groups. Gives you a different perspective.
Exactly. In this study, the absolute risk reduction for overall survival was 7%. Survival increased from 83% in the control group to 90% in the exercise group over that roughly 8-year follow-up period.
Let's put that in terms of people, because that helps me grasp it. Over those 8 years, about 15 out of every 100 patients in the control group died, compared to about 9 out of every 100 patients in the exercise group.
So for every 100 patients doing the exercise program, roughly 6 more were alive after 8 years compared to the control group. Both numbers, the 37% relative reduction and the 7% absolute reduction, are valid ways to describe the same result. But the percentage often sounds more dramatic, while the absolute numbers give you a more, let's say, grounded sense of the impact.
And your takeaway here is critical. Whenever you see a health claim touting a percentage reduction or increase in risk, train yourself to look for the absolute numbers. It provides a much clearer less hyped picture of the real-world effect.
Excellent point. Always look for both if you can.
So we have this robust study with exciting findings, a straightforward intervention, and a powerful outcome. But then there was a notable critique published in the Sensible Medicine newsletter by a group of respected doctors. Dr. Kraushar points to this critique as potentially exemplifying something called the Semmelweis reflex.
Ah, yes, the Semmelweis reflex, named after Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis back in the 1840s. He found that simple hand-washing dramatically reduced death rates in maternity wards.
Right.
But his findings, well, they were largely dismissed by the medical establishment because the idea of doctors' hands causing disease contradicted the accepted beliefs of the time. Tragically, this resistance cost many lives before germ theory was widely accepted.
And Dr. Kraushar argues that dismissing clear evidence about exercise's life-saving potential today, even by respected figures, kind of echoes this historical pattern. Resisting new evidence because it challenges established paradigms like the idea that exercise is merely a lifestyle choice rather than potent medicine.
He sees the critique as potentially harmful, possibly discouraging patients from adopting an intervention with clear survival benefits. He systematically addresses the critics' points in his article, providing us with a blueprint, really, for evaluating common types of skepticism in science.
Okay, let's dive into some of the key arguments made by the critics and see how Dr. Kraushar addresses them. Their core stance, he notes, was pretty dismissive, something along the lines of, "This is a classic case when you have to let go of your love of great stories to see the details."
A strong statement. And Dr. Kraushar counters that framing robust evidence as merely a great story is problematic, especially when it involves reducing death. Let's look at their specific points. One of the first claims was essentially, it's just not plausible. They argued that a 37% reduction in all-cause mortality was simply implausible.
But Dr. Kraushar pushes back hard on that, saying they offer no evidence for this lack of plausibility. Isn't plausibility supposed to be based on existing evidence?
Exactly. And he points out there was already plenty of existing evidence suggesting exercise could have effects of this magnitude. Prior large observational studies in colon cancer patients showed associations between exercise and up to a 40% lower risk of cancer death.
Okay.
Smaller intervention trials also suggested substantial benefits. He even mentions a study showing that just 10 minutes of vigorous activity per week was associated with a 50% reduction in cancer incidence and mortality.
So the groundwork was there.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like this result came out of nowhere without any prior support.
Not at all. As Dr. Kraushar succinctly puts it, ignorance of evidence does not equate absence of evidence. The challenge trial was designed to move beyond association to prove causation, but the prior evidence certainly made the outcome plausible, perhaps even expected by some.
Okay, moving beyond plausibility, their next main point was the exercise didn't actually do anything. They claimed there were almost no between-group differences in typical exercise parameters.
This is where Dr. Kraushar highlights a selective reading of the data. As we just discussed, there were significant differences. The exercise group increased their moderate to vigorous physical activity by over 5 MET hours per week compared to the control group.
Right.
And they improved objective fitness measures like VO2 max and the 6-minute walk distance.
So they did exercise more, and they were fitter. That seems pretty clear.
Precisely. The critic seems to focus on the lack of significant differences in body weight or waist circumference. But, as the study authors correctly noted, and Dr. Kraushar reinforces, that minimal change in weight actually strengthens the argument that the benefits are coming from exercise's other effects: metabolic, inflammatory, immune, not just via weight loss.
Oh, okay.
Focusing only on weight change while ignoring the clear increases in activity and fitness is, well, it's misleading.
Got it. They cherry-picked one metric while ignoring others that show the intervention was effective at increasing exercise and fitness.
Exactly. The intervention successfully increased activity and fitness, which were the intended effects of the exercise program. Seems straightforward.
Another point raised was about the timing of the results. The study's timeline looked suspicious. The critics noted the disease-free survival curves separated around 12 months, while overall survival curves separated later, around 4 years, suggesting this was somehow problematic.
And Dr. Kraushar explains this is actually quite normal and logically follows the disease process in oncology. Interventions that reduce cancer recurrence, which affects disease-free survival, will naturally show a benefit before that translates fully into a difference in overall survival.
Makes sense.
Patients might live with a recurrence for some time before dying from it. The later separation in overall survival simply shows a sustained or even accumulating benefit over the study's long duration. It's not suspicious, it's expected.
The critic also repeated the idea that the tiny difference in exercise dose couldn't reduce recurrences that rapidly within a year.
Which, again, Dr. Kraushar points out, ignores the actual magnitude of activity and fitness increases we just discussed. And the critic offers no scientific basis for why improvements in immune function, inflammation, or metabolic health caused by exercise within a year couldn't plausibly affect residual disease and recurrence risk in that critical post-chemo period. Many physiological responses to exercise happen relatively quickly.
So, their skepticism on the timeline seems to stem from their incorrect premise about the exercise dose being tiny.
Exactly. It connects back to that earlier point.
A more serious accusation from the critic, linked to these timing concerns, was about potential flaws in the study's setup. Suboptimal randomization. They suggested the 15-year enrollment period somehow led to flawed randomization.
This is a significant claim, and Dr. Kraushar emphasizes it's completely unsubstantiated by the evidence presented in the study. The strongest counter-evidence, the baseline characteristics of the two groups.
Table 1.
Exactly, Table 1. A key check for successful randomization is ensuring the groups are similar at the start across all relevant factors. Dr. Kraushar confirms that when looking at the 35 biomarkers and characteristics reported in that baseline table, there were no significant differences between the exercise and control groups.
So the groups were well matched at the beginning. The randomization worked.
They were. Furthermore, the study didn't just use a simple method. They employed a sophisticated technique called dynamic minimization, designed specifically for complex, long, multi-center trials like this one to ensure balance across crucial factors like study center, disease stage, BMI, and fitness as patients were enrolled over time.
Okay.
The fact that the groups ended up balanced across 55 centers and 15 years is actually a testament to successful randomization, not a flaw.
So the critic finding the outcome surprising doesn't constitute proof that the study's fundamental design or randomization was flawed.
Not in the slightest. That's not how you validate or invalidate a scientific study. A key takeaway for you, the listener, when looking at research: check the baseline data, often found in Table 1. Look for balance across key variables, and look for indicators like p-values suggesting no significant differences. A balanced baseline is strong evidence that randomization was successful.
Okay, next point from the critic. But not everyone followed the protocol. They noted that some participants in the exercise group didn't fully adhere to the program as planned.
And Dr. Kraushar's brilliant response is basically, exactly. He points out that analyzing the results by including participants in the group they were originally assigned to, regardless of whether they fully completed the intervention, is called an intention to treat analysis, or ITT.
And why is ITT analysis important, especially in a study like this?
Because it's the preferred, most conservative method in clinical trials. It reflects real-world effectiveness, where perfect adherence is rare. Crucially, including non-adherent participants in the analysis dilutes the effect of the intervention. It biases the results towards the null, meaning it makes it harder to find a statistically significant benefit, even if one truly exists.
So the fact that they found a significant benefit despite some non-adherence means the observed effect is likely an underestimate of the true impact of consistent exercise.
Precisely. He uses a great analogy. If your team includes players who don't fully participate, you might still win, but perhaps by a smaller margin than if everyone was fully engaged. The ITT analysis reflects the team as a whole. It's a more realistic and conservative measure of effectiveness.
And switching to analyze only those who did fully adhere, a per-protocol analysis, is that okay?
Well, that's generally discouraged, especially if done because the ITT results weren't what you hoped for. It can jeopardize the benefits of randomization because the subgroup of adherent participants might be inherently different from the control group in ways you can't measure. Maybe they're more motivated, healthier overall, which is exactly what randomization aimed to prevent.
I see.
So your takeaway. Understanding ITT analysis shows that non-adherence often makes findings more conservative, not less valid. And expecting 100% adherence in a multi-year behavioral trial is simply unrealistic.
So the critic's point about non-adherence, ironically, actually strengthens the study's observed findings, because the true effect is likely even larger.
In a way, yes. It highlights the robustness of the finding.
Okay, next up. They messed up the statistics. The critic claimed the study was underpowered because it had fewer events, 224, than originally planned, 380, for a specific 3-year analysis time frame, raising concerns about false positive findings.
Dr. Kraushar calls this utter nonsense and explains the fundamental statistical error. Having fewer events than planned raises the risk of a false negative failing to detect a real effect, not a false positive. A false positive means seeing an effect that isn't really there.
Okay, opposite problem. And was the study underpowered for the result they did find?
No. The researchers clearly stated they ensured they would have at least 200 events to achieve 80% statistical power, which is the standard benchmark in biomedical research. They ended up with 224 events, and they found a statistically significant result for disease-free survival with a p-value of 0.02.
A p-value of 0.02 is well below the typical threshold of 0.05, right?
Exactly. It means there's only a 2% chance of seeing a result this strong purely by chance if there were no real effect. If a study successfully detects a statistically significant result with adequate power, like their 80% with 200 plus events, it wasn't underpowered for that finding. The critics' claim here is statistically incorrect.
So another takeaway. Look for the power calculation, often aiming for 80%. If a significant result is found below the conventional p-value threshold, the study did have enough power to detect that specific effect.
Precisely.
Finally, the critic claimed it's just a placebo effect. They argued the exercise group received an incredible amount of intervention, the structured program plus behavioral support, making performance bias highly likely, and pointed to quality of life differences as evidence.
Right. Dr. Kraushaar tackles this by clarifying what performance bias actually means. It refers to bias arising from deviations from the intended intervention, where participants or personnel act differently because they know which group they're in a way that's not part of the intervention itself.
But the structured program and support were the intervention being tested.
Precisely. The study was designed to test the effect of that specific multi-component intervention against a control. The differences in what the groups received weren't a deviation, they were the core of the study design. And the differences in quality of life were an expected outcome of a positive intervention like this, not evidence of bias.
So, framing the study design itself, the difference in intervention as proof of performance bias seems circular, like saying the medicine worked, therefore it must be bias.
It is. While it's true you can't blind participants to whether they're exercising or getting support, which means some participant or personnel bias is always theoretically possible in behavioral trials, using the positive outcome itself as proof of bias is flawed logic.
Okay.
Your takeaway here. When evaluating bias, consider if groups were treated differently apart from the specific intervention being tested, not just because the intervention group received the intervention. It's complex.
And the last point from the critic. These results don't apply to real people. They cited the difficulty of enrollment, 15 years, lack of screening numbers, and claimed the enrolled patients were an unrepresentative group, young, not obese, and unusually high-performing at baseline.
Dr. Kraushaar addresses each of these systematically. Yes, enrollment took a long time. At recruiting nearly 900 patients into a complex, multi-year behavioral trial across 55 centers is inherently difficult. That doesn't invalidate the study. It speaks to the challenge of this kind of research.
What?
While screening numbers are useful, their absence doesn't automatically mean the enrolled group was unrepresentative.
And the claims about the patients being young, non-obese, and high-performing.
He systematically debunks these based on the study data.
Yeah.
Young, the median age was 61, with over a third over 65, quite typical for this disease. Non-obese. False. Almost 40% were obese and only a quarter were normal weight.
Okay.
High performing. False. Their baseline fitness was actually below average for the general population. Meeting inclusion criteria isn't the same as being an elite athlete.
So the patient population was relevant and not some outlier group of super fit youth.
Correct. They represent a significant population group for whom an exercise intervention is highly relevant. And establishing efficacy in this well-defined group first is standard scientific practice. Dismissing a study because it doesn't apply immediately to absolutely everyone misunderstands the incremental nature of scientific progress.
That's a really thorough breakdown of the critique and Dr. Kraushaar's powerful rebuttals. What's the bigger takeaway from all of this beyond just this one study?
Well, the fundamental point is that the challenge trial provides crucial high-quality evidence that exercise is a powerful, life-saving intervention that should be integrated into standard care for colon cancer patients. But it's likely just the beginning. The exercise volume in the study was, moderate.
Suggesting the potential for even greater benefits.
Exactly. From other areas of health research, particularly cardiometabolic health, we know there's often a dose-response relationship with exercise. Higher volumes or intensities can yield even greater improvements. There's every reason to believe this could be true for cancer outcomes, too.
And the source mentions that cancer is increasingly understood as having a significant metabolic component.
Yes, that's a really important angle. Cancer cells have altered metabolism. Exercise has profound positive effects on metabolic health, everything from insulin sensitivity to inflammation. This growing understanding further strengthens the biological plausibility for exercise as a therapeutic intervention in cancer. Challenge is perhaps just revealing the tip of the iceberg.
And this brings us full circle back to the Semmelweis reflex, doesn't it? The dismissal of robust evidence for a simple, low-cost, high-benefit intervention like exercise, even by respected voices, highlights that resistance to ideas that challenge existing norms is still a force in science and health communication today.
It really underscores the need for critical evaluation, looking at the evidence itself, rather than dismissing findings based on intuition or preconceived notions of what should or shouldn't be plausible.
So to wrap this up, we've taken a deep dive into the challenge trial, revealing its significant findings that exercise can dramatically improve survival for colon cancer patients. We've also walked through how Dr. Lutz Kraushaar, through his Double Check Doc newsletter, systematically addressed a critique that seemed to dismiss these findings based on common misunderstandings of study design, statistics, and the existing evidence base.
Hopefully this exercise in analyzing the critique has also equipped you with some questions to ask yourself when evaluating health claims and research. Remember to always look for absolute versus relative risk. Check the baseline data of a study for balanced groups, understand the value of intention to treat analysis, and question arguments that dismiss robust evidence without providing equally robust counter-evidence.
Dr. Kraushaar's ultimate message is powerful and clear. Exercise is likely your single most important lifestyle medicine. Don't let flawed arguments or skepticism based on misunderstanding deter you or others from embracing its incredible, life-saving potential.
It's hard to argue with the evidence presented here, really.
And here's a final thought for you to ponder. If something is accessible, side-effect-free, and fundamental as exercise, can have this profound an impact on survival from a serious disease like colon cancer, what other powerful non-drug, non-surgical interventions might we as individuals and as a healthcare system still be overlooking, underutilizing, or perhaps even dismissing because they don't fit neatly into our current medical paradigms? What knowledge are we potentially leaving on the table?
A question that definitely demands further exploration.